Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings.
And ourselves.
We stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world heroes among us, and every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in us soul. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a better place, a whole new world,
Arr.
Hey, Chris Liepe here with 3 tips for sustainable, great-sounding sing-screaming. Singing with distortion. In my opinion, and in very different ways, 2 of the greatest sing-screamers, and incidentally 2 of my favorite vocalists in history, are Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell. They have different approaches, but they give away a lot as far as ways to work these amazingly intense sung sounds into your voice in great ways. Chester here in 2001. When they were trying to decide what the next single off of Hybrid Theory would be, following One Step Closer, Chester did not want it to be Crawling. And one of the main reasons was it was really hard to sing live. Chester had made known on a number of occasions that distorted singing was way harder on his voice than all-out voiceless screams, or near voiceless. Chester never really went all voiceless. And this is something that a lot of people who are getting into aggressive vocals don't think about, or don't think to think about. And I'm not minimizing the difficulty of a well-shaped, well-crafted, voiceless scream. They're incredible. And I have more trouble, as I'm still developing those techniques in my voice, with those kinds of techniques than I do with sing-screaming. But I totally understand, having dabbled and really worked on both, why sing-screaming is often more strenuous than some of the voiceless sorts of engagements. And this is because it's easy in the beginning to just go really hard on your primary chords and get good sounding distortion. But you quickly find out that it is unsustainable. So we need to build more mindfully sing-screaming distortion over our primary chord engagement and feel out that balance, that unique balance to our own voice that allows us to be sustainable. Listen to the rest of this 2001 Crawling chorus. Tip number 1, we need to be thinking about compression, holding back, over projection and over raw exertion. So compression, not projection. Engaged in healthy singing of all kinds requires that you understand the fundamental principles and application of proper support and airflow management. If you are not fully sure that you understand how to use these methods and tools efficiently, click the link below in the video description or pinned comment and join my free course. I'll help you dial these in so the things that we're working on in this video will be easier for you to apply more quickly. Belting allows us to project and be loud and powerful. Rio! Oh! Oh! Okay. So, but we can't build distortion on that without sort of naturally going into a primary chord overload. Rio! Yeah, it can sound kind of good, but it doesn't feel right. It feels like it's conflicting with my primary vocal cords. And you hear Chester innately, to save his voice, when he gets to Rio, when he pulls that sound forward and belts, listen. Again, on Rio, when he really opens it up, he belts it. He brings it. It goes from Re. It goes from back there to oh. And he cleans up. So he's building his distortion on a different placement than forward. He's not building it over a belt. And then at the end of Reel, he distorts a little bit and you find him bringing his resonance back. So we have Reel. I'm using intentional, more powerful clean singing with my belt. And then I'm bringing the resonance back and I'm compressing or holding back to get the distortion. Not by me not bringing it back and just purely being forward and projecting more and more, I hurt myself pretty quick. And it's this balance that Chester struggled with when singing this song, because it's all in a very limited range. And so when you're singing it live, it's hard to really dynamically change your placement because you're not, I mean, it's a great range, but you're not going, really high and really low. You're right here, which brings me to tip number 2. Rely on different sensations and placements in different ranges. Intentionally pursue feeling out your scream singing over a broad range instead of a narrow range, and you will unlock natural distorted placements and engagements. It's really hard to unlock healthy distortion in a narrow range of singing. It might sound great, but it's a lot harder to do. So, listen to this. Just that little line. Listen to what's happening with his voice from a distortion perspective. It's compressed, but it's not distorted yet. It's not it's cleanish, but still aggressive. And then, by the time he gets to said, which is an open, but again, placed a little bit further back, we have that nice, mild distortion. Every word I say is what I mean. Every word I say. So there's this gradual turning up of the compression. There's a gradual turning up of the constriction built over our primary chord engagement. But it's happening over a range of notes, and it's happening as we go a little bit higher. In other words, I'm not trying to do it on one note. I'm moving the notes around and varying my placement at the same time. So I'm relying on the dynamics of my voice as I'm moving around in notes. I'm pursuing lots of different sensations and different placements as I climb that line. Every word I say is what I mean. So live there, build it there, and then go to a completely different part of your range. Cornell did this all the time, and I'm convinced it's one of the reasons he was so free with his distortion. Okay, these are high, but that's the point of this exercise. This is a C and a D. Now I know why you've been shaking. Now I know. And I realize that there's doubling going on, but we're gonna find that mixed voice note. No. Place it back. No. And then we're going to experiment with adding a little bit of fry to that note. So loosen, relax into it. No. There it is. Then, again, multiple sensations. Then we're going to compress into that. So try to hold intensity back as we push more here. We're building it over the primary chord engagement. I know why. And you can hear the fry and the compression working together there. Now I know why you've been Yes. And then on shaken, and we hear Cornell do this, we're going to abandon and compress. Shaken, shaken, shake. So first we abandon. Now I know why you've been shaken. Ah! Then we practice compressing into that abandonment. Now I know why you've been shaken. Ah, did it. Now I know why you've been shaken. Now I know why you've been shaken. Oh, I didn't abandon quite a bit there. I used the same sort of engagement, which leads me to my third tip. Embrace volatility and vulnerability, not control. This is so important. You hear and see Chester. Just look at his face. I mean, he just invites you to speculate what's going on in his head. He's so like in his own world and wearing this mind state just out for everybody to see. Right? Look at him. And this takes a whole lot of practice, maybe more practice than the actual techniques themselves. But we need to learn to connect with ourselves and others while also being mindful of what we're feeling physically in our voice so that we can make adjustments, so that we can feel free to express in a genuine, connected, vulnerable way while still serving our instrument. In the incredible book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, I was introduced to the concept of being a thought watcher. In other words, I am experiencing a thought and I am noticing I'm experiencing a thought at the same time. I am experiencing myself experiencing something in my brain. And we can do this with our voice. In my voice course, I repeatedly stop exercises and invite you to take inventory of what you're feeling and what you're thinking. This is probably the most important thing about developing healthy scream singing. At least I have found it to be. If I am making a sound that does sound good, but noticing that it doesn't feel sustainable, I need to adjust it non-judgmentally. And I need to balance this experiencing physically and noticing what I'm experiencing physically on an analytical level. Okay? However, it is possible to do this, to notice how you are feeling while you are truly given over to a vulnerable and engaged moment. And this is where singers, legendary and beginner, have trouble, and why sometimes scream singing especially can be so difficult, because we get so wrapped up in our emotions, in our engagement with others, that we go too hard and we don't realize it till it's too late. Practice building in this detached yet fully present experiential relationship into your vocal practicing. It's incredible. I can help you. And remember the first two tips as well. Rely on lots of different places in your voice, both range-wise and placement-wise, and compression over projection or pure exertion. Again, if you would like more help with experiencing and thinking about your voice in new and different ways, click that link below and join my free course in the pinned comment or video description. And be sure to check out this playlist for further advice on awesome scream singing. So you've had some really good practice sessions. You're making huge progress on a certain aspect of singing. And then you start to decline. You start to feel like you're working against yourself. Those sensations that you were able to get progressively better and more freely, you're not able to get. What's going on? You had it and now you don't. You're losing it. You're working backward. Not working backward.
Phew.
As you start to progress and have victories as a singer, remember to regularly take a step back mentally before your body forces you to do so, and revisit the sensations and victories that got you to where you are. If you're doing this proactively, your body won't do it for you. Hey everybody, here with Phil Henley from Wings of Pegasus, and I know you guys have watched his channel. He's doing some amazing things for authenticity in music. I thought it'd be really neat to have him on the channel to share about what he's got in the works and what it means, honestly, for the whole music industry, for performers, for students, for teachers. I mean, it's a big deal. What you got going on, Phil?
Yeah, all you see on the advertising boards is this band live tour, and everyone is assuming live means actually doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that has been the definition probably since the beginning of music, that when you go to watch somebody live, that's why it's called live, because you're not listening to a CD. You are seeing, appreciating it live. So yeah, that was very much the angle that people, once they'd then gone to this show, and even actually being there, they have this, I don't know, feeling of being misled, because they think, well, this isn't what I paid for, because I'm paying for a live show, for a live vocal, and what they're getting is not that. So yeah, this really got me thinking over the last kind of 12 months is how long I've been working on it. But my focus has been really to bring a bit of transparency and honesty to the music industry in general, and especially for live performances. And I know the application of what I'm doing most likely will spread, but for live performances, for people to know if they are going to be hearing a live vocal. And the thing that I'm working on is called Authentic Vocal. So that's going to be the name of the project. But what it really comes down to is a registered trademark that is displayed on tickets. And like I said, it'll probably roll out in the future to other things. But seeing a registered trademark, and you know what that logo means. It means that you're paying for a live vocal here. So if you see that on your ticket, that's what you're paying for. And if you don't see that on a ticket, there's no guarantee as to what you will be watching, which is how the music industry is nowadays. That's the default, is that you don't know what you're going to be hearing. And you think, well, where else in commerce do you have that, where you're paying for something and you don't know what it is? It's like, I mean, it just does seem a bit crazy.
So let me ask you this. Well, first of all, one of the things I love about going to a show where I know the vocalist is singing live, sometimes because I've actually talked to that vocalist before the show, is that I can enter into this unique experience with that vocalist. I went to a Periphery show a little while ago, and they were doing 2 nights back to back, and it was one of the coolest concerts I've ever been to. I mean, I got to take the vocalist Spencer out for a steak dinner prior to the show, so we got to talk about which songs he was going to be singing, and he was mentioning that he wasn't feeling all that great, but he was going to power through anyway. And so I got to be in the audience knowing what his disposition was like, and like struggling through this, maybe a cold coming on. And then when he sung, Wax Wings off the new album, the whole time I'm like, well, is he going to be able to get that note, that one note that he just holds for a really long time at the end, and how he's going to handle the verse, how is he going to handle that one part? And I mean, it wasn't like the studio recording, but he delivered, and it was different, but it was amazing. And the people in that audience and that band, that was a one-time thing. Yeah, someone could film it and put it on YouTube or whatever, but like, I got to experience that with Spencer, with the band, and so did everybody else there. And that's what I love about live vocals. I went to a Chris Daughtry show a little bit ago, and I knew he was singing everything live, and the energy and the connection I felt with him. And that doesn't just go for vocalists that I know. When I would I got to go to the first Audio Slave show at the Fillmore when they like it was the first one that Audioslave did as a band, and it was in Denver. And I remember just feeling so honored to be there because I knew a little bit about, Chris Cornell was coming out of rehab. This would be the first show he's played in a long time, really. He's done some solo stuff, but wow, this is quite the privilege. And I remember initially being a little bit shocked that the sound of his voice was just oddly different. I'd been listening to the albums, Audioslave, but also listening to, Soundgarden. And then it's like, actually though, this is the first time, not the first time I'd heard him do a live performance, but the first time I had actually gone to see him and been in the same room with him live. And I cherish that. It's, he calls up this song that I've been listening to on the album, Show Me How to Live, and he sings it, and it's different, and he fudges some things and can't quite make it, but it was, if it had just been the album recording or an alternate take that they'd done in the studio of the vocals with live musicians, or even parts of it where, the verses were sung live, but then the chorus was, it defaulted to this thing that sounds way different than the experience I'm having, I would have been disconnected. And I've been to shows with bands I really respect where that's happened. The low stuff, the non-challenging stuff is live, and then we go into the chorus, and then, wait a minute, now there's background vocals that aren't represented on stage, and now there's this vocal that sounds more produced and a bit more perfect, and maybe even pitch corrected. And there's this detachment that I sense, but also this detachment that I feel like the audience, there isn't quite this, like, everybody's sitting on the edge of their seat if they're sitting, or they're standing and they're, hoping and being there and supporting the artist, because the artist in some weird way has detached and not supported their audience. So I said I was going to ask a question. My question is this. Where do we draw the line? Is an authentic vocal something that the live vocalist has to be responsible for all of the vocals? Or is it like, I recently had you watch a Michael Jackson video that I did where there was Michael Jackson vocals, and he was giving an amazingly connected performance. But he was sick, and never mind that he was sick. He was dancing and doing the most intense cardio workout on stage while performing Billie Jean, and yet some of the stage mic was still included in certain places in the final mix, but largely he was relying, so that he could get the choreography right, so that he could connect with the audience because he wasn't feeling well. He was using help tracks, background vocals, and even a replacement lead track. Would that be, because it includes authentic vocals, and I want to hear you speak to that particular performance that I shared with you, but I also want to know, where do you draw the line? Would that be an authentic vocal? Would that have the badge on it or not, and why?
So that wouldn't qualify.
Okay.
Purely because with authentic vocal, it's exactly what it sounds like. That what I'm doing is ensuring that people, when they go to watch a show, obviously they know what they're paying for, but you're hearing the voice that is being produced into that microphone, and that's coming out of the speakers. And that's all. It doesn't. Pardon?
And that's all, right? You're not hearing.
That's all. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So when it goes, the voice goes like we are talking here.
Right.
So our voices are going into the microphone, and we are hearing them out of our amplifiers, our speakers. So as soon as that process is interrupted, such as, as you'll know, with effects chains going into, for example, auto-tune live, the voice goes on its own journey now to an effects processor, which changes it before it's then coming out of the speakers. Mm-hmm. And when the voice has been tuned and, pitch corrected, even though, that's generally going to be a process that happens after the event, but auto-tune is what people will be used to hearing live. once that process has happened, you're now not hearing the authentic vocal because the original signal has been modified. So it's all about going back to this original signal as we are producing here. And as soon as that gets edited, it's not classed as an authentic vocal. And I know that people will already say, oh, but what about reverb? What about delay? What about compression? All these different things. All of those things don't change the signal. Like if I'm creating a signal here, as you and I are,
you're adding to the signal.
If we now supply reverb or apply reverb to our voices, we're still going to sound exactly the same, but now we're in a cave. Or if we're applying delay, you're going to hear the exact same signal over and over and again. We're not jumping ahead of kind of the speakers.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way that I describe it is when people say, oh, it's just the same as any other effect, I always come back and say, well, technically it's an affect. It's affected what you're hearing before you've even heard the signal. The signal isn't what was produced. So the signal is actually not authentic. So if you're applying reverb, delay, and chorus, whatever it might be, to a vocal that isn't the original signal that's been auto-tuned, then the actual voice that was produced into that microphone has disappeared. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, it's not there anymore. So yeah, very much authentic vocal is about transparency, honesty. And in the case that you put forward there, in that particular case, people might say, oh, why is this particular show or why is this particular date not covered by authentic vocal? Then that's where the transparency comes in. And Michael would say, I had laryngitis, so I did as much as I could, but we had to rely on some backing tracks. And I guess that's my ultimate goal, is for in the future for artists just to be able to say that. Mm-hmm. And if people don't see that registered trademark on the performance, then they'll know, oh, well, something that, for example, they might think, well, this artist is usually singing live, so what was the problem? And it just opens the door to honesty. And because this is the other thing, that people know that you get ill and that sometimes people have to cancel a show or they might not be at their best vocally. And some singers might kind of push through that and just do as best they can, in which case that would still be covered by authentic vocal. And then there's the other point that people will say, oh, like you've said, that the high note wasn't quite there, and the melody maybe changed a bit because you can see that they're kind of saving their voice. But when you've got the authentic vocal logo on there, you know why. You think, oh, they're doing that because maybe you can hear their voice isn't quite there, but they're doing they're doing what they can. And therefore, when people say, oh, that performance wasn't very good, they say, yeah, but look in the corner. He's doing that. Yeah. And that's where you can compare it with other performances where you don't see the logo and they're nailing it, Mm-hmm. So it's just, that honesty and transparency is the way that I'm going with it, really.
I really like that, especially, right? Oh, this is live, but it's not quite where I expected it to be. Another vocalist that I've really appreciated in the performances that I've seen, he's not doing much at the moment, but is Brendan Urie. And, he would very routinely, lower songs that were really demanding live. And, I mean, Brendan as a, when he was doing stuff, monster live vocalist, monster studio vocalist, incredible entertainer. And yet he was lowering stuff. And yet he was doing things that were very obviously live. Of the stuff that I saw, I'm sure there's stuff out there where he's been doctored or something. I don't know. But he, in my mind, is one of those vocalists that I love to watch live because I'm fairly certain I'm going to get an authentic performance. Something that hasn't been, it's going to be rougher than the studio recording, but that's actually why I'm looking for it. That's actually why I want to engage with it. Not because it's going to be as good. It's because it's different in ways that I, as a vocalist, can relate to. What do you hope that authentic vocal is going to bring value-wise to you as a student?
So I think I've got the advantage of being able to hear all of the tuning, all of the pitch correction, all of the auto tune. But I know that a lot of people can't hear that. So it means that what I'm judging another singer's performance on is different. Like yourself, when you're listening to somebody sing and it's genuinely live, you can hear all the tiny things that are different that are purely because it is live. That the artist, or the vocalist isn't going to be shredding their vocals every night because it's impossible. So you're listening to how they're navigating their way as best they can through their live versions of the songs that might mean you're kind of meandering around a melody and just taking maybe a semitone or a tone off a particular note. So even that makes the live performance unique because you're hearing all of these different things going on that you wouldn't do otherwise. So as a student of the voice, because I've got that advantage, it means that all of the stuff that I know is tuned, I can put off to one side and think, well, that's unrealistic. Nobody's ever going to reach that because that's hitting finite values and it's manipulated, and effectively it's a computer processor that is causing the voice to go to these places. So I can focus on the singers that are actually singing live and hearing what they're doing.
What about, so we're talking specifically about tuning right now.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about the studio versus live, and really we're talking about help tracks or backing tracks or miming as well, because oftentimes when someone who is singing live but miming, they're miming to a studio recording which has been maybe pitch corrected, but we could throw that over here for a minute. But it's been comped, or what we're hearing through the speakers is a product of something that took them 5 or 6 hours to record and edit, and make sure the breaths are all good and the cutoffs and I screwed up that note, let me punch that one. Speak to that, because you can't hear that as tuning, but you can hear that as, well, or can you? Can you hear that as like, do you throw those performances out as well if you suspect that there's a backing track or a mime track?
So in very detailed cases that I haven't pointed out in particular analysis videos, because I think it's getting into maybe a bit too much detail, but when I'm listening to an isolated vocal through reference speakers, I can hear the comp takes where, and you'll know this, where you end a particular vocal phrase. If you're singing that phrase in isolation, you're not worried about your breath for the next phrase.
Right.
So you can end that and then, grab your bottle of water, have a drink. Okay, right, let's get the next phrase down. But when it's then comped together, this is where, sometimes you have miracle phrases where a singer has just sung a really long line and without a breath, they've now gone into another line that you think, well, there's been no breath there. So that, and I'm not talking about just holding a note for a long time. I'm talking about you can hear they're at the end of their breath and then another phrase will start up. But again, that's something that maybe people in the know will notice. And also, it's so distinctive where you hear a comp take cut in the middle of a breath.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, that first part is really weird. So again, I'm kind of hearing things in a lot of detail, but even still, I think because I've been doing it a long time and because I've sung live, I know how the world works and I know how vocal cords work. And I know that something that I've always had in my mind when I was performing live, actually when I first started performing live and trying to sing live, I didn't know that you don't just go for it all the time.
Yeah, right.
So that was it's a journey that you go on of learning about your own voice. And then I started watching videos on singers and great singers who've been doing tours, playing night after night and, do loads of dates. And something that stuck with me is, I can't remember who it was, but a vocalist said, every night I give it a good 70 to 75% of what I can do. And I thought, oh, I wish I knew that earlier.
Yeah, right.
Rather than burning out my voice kind of night after night. And that's, again, I've got a lot of kind of insider knowledge of how to judge things. But thinking of students of the voice, all of this information that they might not have. Some people might think that you have to go out there and you have to belt your A4s, your B4s, your C5s, night after night after night. And, when you know about this, everything starts making sense. And as you've said about, Chris Cornell live and great, Freddie Mercury, for example, live, where you start to notice, oh, he's doing that thing where he's navigating the high notes because you can actually hear a bit of hoarseness in his voice, but it's like a pro move. And that's what has to happen with genuinely performing live. And again, it's kind of back to the authentic vocal thing, that's why it's authentic, that you can hear that something's different because it's a human trying to sing night after night after night. And you've kind of, especially when you're in huge demand, you've got to make those artistic choices as to where to go for the longevity of your tour, to put on a show every night and make it a great show, but at the same time be able to last for the whole tour and not have 3 nights that were amazing and then 20 nights that were really dodgy because you might even have to cancel the rest of the tour because you might get nodes or really bad stuff that happens from, I guess, living in this dream world of, oh, everyone's singing perfectly all the time. They're all, hitting these notes perfectly.
I got to see My Chemical Romance live recently too, and Gerard was just amazing live, and he had this neat effects box down by his, like a pedal board for the vocals, and he'd be singing and singing and singing, and then sometimes at the end of the song he'd like go down and he'd move this knob or step on a pedal, and then there'd be this cycling thing happening and more distortion coming out, and then he'd get rid of it and then he'd keep singing. And it was so fun to watch that, again, unique experience that's an art form in and of itself. The art form in the studio is, let's craft a wonderful connected and performance and get the best thing possible that's going to live forever on that record. And it doesn't matter, the vocalist is going to sacrifice himself. It might take them multiple days to do this. They might have migraines at the end of the day, but that performance is going to live forever. And it's a good thing because that vocal that was recorded is something that, for 30 years people have enjoyed and connected with, but it's an art form in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
Then you go to and the Black Parade, that album is full of vocal performances like that. They were labored over and crafted and comped and manipulated and background vocals and arranged and just, and then you go and you see those same songs live with that expectation, well, not expectation, just knowing and living with that album for years and years and years. And then you get to see Gerard perform them, and he's using this weird effects box. There isn't the background vocals. He's lowered most of the keys. He has, he stops at the end of one of the songs and they cut it short, and he goes, "Man, Denver, Colorado being a mile high. This is, all of us are in our 40s now and we're having to sing these songs. We had to lower," and he's just being so transparent about it. He's like, "I'm tired. And I'm going to sing these a little differently." And it was just so awesomely refreshing to, I mean, we have the album. We don't need the album again. Like, I can go home and listen to the album if I want to hear the genius behind Gerard's vocals. I got to experience slightly struggling Gerard, but in the midst of that struggle, I got to experience vulnerability and a whole different level of creativity. Just so cool. And,
it's that human connection.
Yeah.
Because you can listen to somebody's voice in the studio and multiple albums, and it's all going to be pristine. But then this is the thing about going to a live show when it's all genuinely live, you hear somebody singing, is that connection to them as a person that, you're as vulnerable as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And your voice is like mine. And that's where the connection comes from, that you're now the same. Because everyone can kind of idolize a voice, but when you then hear them in real life, it's kind of bringing everyone together to understand, we are all the same. We all have the same issues. And especially for students of the voice, everyone goes through issues, and it can only be a positive thing. I mean, not only in the vocal world, but in the world in general, to know that people that are idolized are human. They are the same as you.
Yeah.
So don't set the bar there, because not even they reach it.
Right.
They can't reach that bar. So just have this appreciation of what it is to be a natural singer, and get used to the hurdles, because everyone goes over them. And sometimes if a hurdle's too high, you go around it. What can you do to just dodge that and then keep on going forward? So
for a time,
there's an artistry to that.
Yeah,
to keeping moving forward, and not actually having to worry about being perfect and thinking, I can't get over this particular hurdle because in order to do it, I've got to do this. And you think, well, yeah, but what if you did this other thing that singer did in order to get around that?
Mm-hmm.
I think, but again, that's the transparency and the honesty. And like you say, seeing somebody fully live, you get that connection that, this is why I'm into singing, because of all of this stuff, all the tiny details that are changed, and kind of maybe concessions that are made, but it's totally honest. And if anything, that's going to be better for vocalists to learn from.
Exactly.
Because there's nothing worse than having this voice that everyone's idolizing, that actually in reality the actual vocalist can't do that live night after night after night.
Yeah.
So they're idolizing that vocal, and they think they never measure up. Right. And some people say, I can't sing. I've been trying to sing that for a year, and I can't do it. Every time I try and do it at the open mic night, some nights it's on, but then I can totally miss it. But they need to know that, so is the person who actually does it. Right. They hit it sometimes, and they don't hit it other times. But I guess this is the problem, that especially with YouTube and the internet and seeing videos that have been post-edited, nobody's seeing all the nights that they need to see, where people are navigating notes and not quite hitting them, but it is fully live. So I think it's going to be a good thing for not only students but just the general public to know that if they do see a performance that is a little bit different, they could see the reason why that might be is because they're actually doing it. So,
Authentic Vocal, you said it's rolling out for live performances. Might be on a ticket, might be on a poster. You might see it on Instagram. Like, this tour has the badge on it, and then may eventually roll out to YouTube channels or artists or whatever. Right? Like, my channel, I could enter into an agreement with you and say my channel is sponsored. It's not sponsored, but it is.
Yeah, it's independently verified.
By
Authentic Vocal.
Okay, independently verified as Authentic Vocal, which means I am committing to transparency.
My focus is really live shows. That's where I've got a lot of the emails about.
Yeah.
But I mean, my channel just in itself is proof that, well, everyone doesn't know not only about a live show, everyone doesn't know about everything that's going on. So what would be great is if something like you've done where you get to see a one-take vocal, whether that became a trend and it can be covered by Authentic Vocal, where you do a one take so that everybody now knows. It'd be great if established singers did it so that everyone had a true representation of that artist's voice, so that we kind of get into what is really being promoted in every corner of society about accepting our differences and just be yourself, be unique, accept your flaws. Everybody's different, and shapes and sizes. It doesn't matter. We're all unique, and we're all just as valid as the next person. So all of this acceptance that we have of us as humans and society, or we're trying to kind of get towards that. Why draw the line at music? The thing, oh yeah, but music, you've got to now not be natural. You've got to tune because everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why are we stopping there? Well, why don't we accept what our voices are like and how we are different? And the reason why every artist is unique, and the only USP of every great singer ever has been their voice being unique.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we want to get rid of that all of a sudden, over the last kind of 5, 10, 15 years, and make everybody's pitch accuracy exactly the same? Because then it means that potentially forever into the future, if you keep on going on this downward spiral, that everybody, no matter how unknown you are as a singer, if you're feeling the pressure to pitch correct your vocals or auto-tune, whatever you might be doing, everyone ends up sounding the same.
Yeah.
Where's that little bit of expression that a great jazz singer might have, where they drift sharp with vibrato? Where does that go? All these tiny little things that we take on.
Well, hey, thanks for coming on and talking about this stuff. Anybody
No
wanting
problem.
to know more about authentic vocal can follow the links in the description or the pinned comment below this video. And good to connect with you again, my friend.
Yeah, and you, thanks for the chat.
We'll see you for more. The gig's about to start. That red light's about to go on. You're about to go on to stage. You're about to perform. What do you do with your voice? What are some things that you can do to ensure that you have a good performance? Well, here's what not to do. Don't try to cram in another warm-up. Don't try to think about all the things that you might forget or those notes that you might not hit. Instead, here's what you do. Create a distraction, a fun distraction that has nothing to do with what you're about to start doing. Jump up and down. Start a conversation about something that has nothing to do with anything. Laugh a little bit. Be free and completely detached from what you're about to do. Remember, you've rehearsed, you've practiced, you've already warmed up. You don't need to cram anything else in. Lots of vocalists and aspiring vocalists listen to the mastery of a singer like Bruno Mars.
Now my baby's dancing, but she's
or Elvis.
Walked through a party in the county jail. Should have heard him knocked out
The two vocalists are quite linked, by the way, and they admire their impeccable texture and tone and qualities that they don't think they could ever have in their own voice, and they say, my tone sucks. I hate the way my voice sounds, and there's just nothing I can do about it. I've tried everything. And then you listen to Paul McCartney, who can sing in seemingly any style, and it's not only passable, but genius, and frustration could really set in. From the vocal qualities in Yesterday to Helter Skelter.
I'm not half the man I used to be. Well, I'm coming down fast, but I'm miles above you. You may be a lover, but you ain't no dancer.
Oh, darling.
Believe me when I tell you.
And the playfulness, the unhinged nature of the end of Hey Jude.
People from all over the world, sing it one more time.
What if the problems you're having developing your own ideal tone with your voice isn't a problem with your voice at all, but how you're listening to vocalists who you deem have amazing tone, and then what you're trying to do based on what you're hearing? In other words, maybe you're just listening to things wrong, and it's causing you to compete with your favorite vocalists rather than learn from them. I want that quality and that quality. I want Bruno Mars's rasp. I want that warm Elvis tone. And then you record yourself and you listen back to this poor imitation of one of your favorite vocalists and you go, I'm terrible and I'm just getting worse. Let's go way back to when Paul McCartney and the Beatles were in Liverpool doing thousands and thousands of hours worth of cover tunes. Figuring things out as they go, stumbling upon possibilities with their voice as they cover so many different songs from so many different vocalists. Paul has even talked about in multiple interviews on multiple occasions how his vocal styles and the writing styles came from all these influences and them producing their own takes based on these influences.
We were a mixture of all the people we loved, but we weren't any individual one of them. So we were like Everly Brothers when John and I sang harmony. We were like Buddy Holly when we did those kind of songs. We were like Elvis when we did this. So it just made up to a new sound.
Not imitation, inspiration. But here's the thing, inspiration can come by way of imitation. It just has to be done correctly. What's correctly? Non-judgmentally. If you're so stuck on comparing yourself to the master while you're trying to still figure things out with your voice, you'll never get beyond poor imitations. However, if you stop trying to hone certain techniques based on what you're hearing in that other vocalist, but instead adopt characters inspired by what you hear that other vocalist doing, and then play with those characters in a fringy, sort of off-the-wall way with your voice, you will discover so many possibilities. And as you continue to suspend judgment on how you sound in the moment, you'll figure out this little inflection and that little posture and this little opportunity over here. This is actually what we hear Paul doing in the midst of recording things like the end of Hey Jude. At least part of the genius of Paul McCartney can be yours if you learn to play with your voice as an amalgamation of different character postures, as opposed to trying to find your ideal tone. Bruno Mars, at the age of 5, playing around with inspirations from Elvis, was doing things with his voice without him even knowing it. He was changing his placement. He was pronouncing vowels in certain ways. He was finding tones by experimenting. Him diving in to these different styles as a child led him to stumble on possibilities that aren't really present in either Elvis or James Brown. This is what happens when you let things influence you, not try to imitate them exactly. So now I'd like to lead you in a short practical exercise to show you how imitation done correctly can lead to all sorts of amazing things in your voice. Be patient. Try this for yourself and see what happens. We're going to take the line sung very vanilla at first. Can't buy me love. No, you can't buy me love. Can't buy me love. No, no, no. Now, I sang that in a very just whatever voice. And that might be a type of sound that I would listen back to and be like, man, I sound fake. My tone is stupid. Blah. So rather than beat my head up against the wall and say, I sound nothing like the Beatles, I'm going to go a completely different direction. Kermit the Frog. Can't buy me love. No, you can't buy me love. No, no, no. Now, I'm not even saying that's a very good Kermit the Frog imitation, but that tone was definitely inspired by Kermit the Frog. How about Miss Piggy? Can't buy me love. No, you can't buy me love. Can't buy me love. No, 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 no. How about a really angry amalgamation of different Warner Brothers characters? I can't buy me love. I said, no, you can't buy me love. Can't buy me love. No, 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 no. How about a really tired, yawny guy who's just flustered at the end of the day? Can't buy me love. No, you can't buy me love. Can't buy me love. No, no, no. How about a real creepy nerd? Can't buy me love. Can't buy me love. No, you can't buy me love. Can't buy me love. No, no, no. So the trend here is I'm not going for goodness. I'm going for fringe. I'm going for cringe. I'm going for experimenting with postures in my voice that don't sound good, They're poor imitations of other things, but they are representations of extremes when it comes to what's possible with my voice. Now, as I get more and more familiar with those fringes, with those extremes in my voice, I can take this same line and I can borrow from these extremes, and I can balance them in real time and experiment, still non-judgmentally, with what it feels like to deliver this same line in lots of different ways at the same time, or one after the other. I can arc all of these characters into this one line. This is a process to learn how to do this, but it's so worth it. You can't buy me love. No, you can't buy me love. Can't buy me love. No, no, no. You can't buy me love. No, you can't buy me love. You can't buy me love. No, no, no. Can't buy me love. No, you can't buy me love. Can't buy me love. No, no, no. Do you hear the little bits of Miss Piggy coming out at the end of no? No, no, no. You say, my pitch isn't very good. Anybody can sound like dying cats and stupid cartoon characters, but it takes a lot to really hit notes well. Don't use this argument as a cop-out. If you haven't tried this, try it. Try it for a long time, non-judgmentally, and see what happens. Your pitch will come. It will. Listen to some of the things that Paul McCartney's doing at the end of something like Hey Jude, or all sorts of other live performances where he's just coming completely unhinged. Is the pitch there completely? No.
People from all over the world, sing it one more time.
Find these tonal extremes and postures with your voice and experiment. Find what's possible and then start reining it in. As you lean into one sensation, dial it back a little bit and bring in a little bit of this, a little bit less Kermit, a little bit more Miss Piggy, a little bit less creepy nerd guy, a little bit more boring tired guy, whatever it is. You will find these areas of your voice. You will stumble upon them that will be remarkable and inspiring to you. And you started by imitating not an amazing singer, but by imitating stupidity while being inspired by your favorite singer. Take this path and see what happens. If you'd like more help doing this and unlocking ways that your voice can work in freedom, click the link below in the pinned comment or video description and join my free course called Free Your Voice. I'll help you continue to pull things out of your voice you never knew were there. Here's a quick yet introspective exercise that anybody can do to strengthen their higher notes. Go into your head voice and do an intentionally raspy sounding note. Then work on making the transition from that raspy head voice note into a full note in your head voice. Leaning into the differences between the sensations of raspy head voice and good chord closure round head voice is going to awaken your vocal tract and your placement in a lot of different ways. You're experimenting with chord closure and airflow moderation. Both of these things are key to developing a stronger, higher voice. Once you get these dialed in and you really lean into that good chord closure head voice, this is the beginnings of being able to feel out your mixed voice.
I love you, oh loves. Do you have thoughts? Do you want to share them with me? I love you, oh loves. Oh, do you have thoughts? I'd like to share mine with you. Can we share? Are you gonna spread love or hate? Are you gonna spread love or hate?